right. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Wealth in Christ podcast show where we inspire the masses to become financially free while building God's kingdom. On the podcast today, we have Ms.Davonne Reaves. Ms.Davonne Reaves is the founder of the Vonne Group, where the goal is to educate African Americans on how to become hotel investors and owners. Ms.Davonne Reaves is the owner and author of 3 hotels across the country. On the podcast today, we'll be discussing the steps of becoming a hotel owner and investor. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Dami.
How did you get started in this journey of becoming a hotel owner?
You know what? I get that question all the time. I should have it down pat. I didn't even think about it. I didn't like wake up planning like, oh, I didn't grow up. I'm gonna own a hotel. So yes, thank you for the introduction. My name is Davonne Reaves. I'm the president and founder of the Vonne Group, and I got my start in the hotel industry by actually working as a front desk agent at the Hyatt Regency Atlanta. That's the only hotel I've ever worked at. Really, I didn't switch brands. I've always been a Hyatt girl. I worked with the Hyatt for about 6.5 years, and I transitioned into commercial real estate or into the hotel sector when I worked in corporate. Took a non-paid internship, and that was my introduction. So I worked there 3 months. So I worked there in the morning as a non-paid intern, and I worked at the Hyatt at night to pay my bills. I loved it. I fell in love with it. My clients at the time, they owned land, they were billionaires, and they were developers. They were commercial real estate developers, and I saw the vision and how they can take hundreds of acres of grass and turn it into a multi-million-dollar development project. And a lot of times they included hotels. So that's how I got my start.
That's good. That's good. And what made you interested in hotels compared to like other commercial properties or just regular real estate
But
properties?
that's all I knew. I didn't know anything else. I didn't go to school for real estate. I didn't go to school for finance. I wish I would have, but I didn't. And so that's our recommendation for folks to go to school for real estate and finance. If you want to get in commercial development, that may help. But so that's all I knew from working as a front desk agent. I didn't know any other industry. And I fell in love with it. I love the hospitality industry. I love what it does for our community. It's one of the only industries where you can start off as a front desk agent and become a hotel owner or become a general manager. And at the time, my goal when I was working at the front desk was to become a general manager, not to become a hotel owner, because I didn't know it was possible. Because at the time, the hotel that I worked for was owned by the brand, so I didn't think that it could be owned by another company or small business. So that's what motivated me, I guess, was that once I realized that I can own a hotel, I was like, oh, well, that's the top position. Well, I'm a little competitive, so I always like to be at the top. I always like to be number one.
That's really good. That's really good. And it's funny you said that because, especially being in from the minority community, it's not common to hear people say, they want to own a hotel or have an idea of how to own a hotel. So what would you say, how did you go about starting? Like, what was the first step you took in being a hotel owner?
Um, well, so for about, I guess, maybe about maybe almost 5 years, I worked with hotel owners. So my clients were hotel owners. So that's the best way to learn about hotel ownership, is working on behalf of them. I took a role as an analyst or an associate in asset management, and I worked on multi-million, billion-dollar hotel projects, and that's how I learned. I had a great opportunity by I was getting paid, but I was also learning at the same time.
That's great. That's great. And what would you say was the biggest challenge for you, being an African American woman trying to get into this industry where most people are not involved in?
Oh, that's a great question. A lot of it was a learning curve. Like I said before, I didn't major in real estate or finance, so having that learning curve, I think that would have helped me. My color, I probably faced a little bit more discrimination from age because I was young. still young, still considered to be young. So that caused some difficulties. Fortunately, I didn't face a lot of racism that was blatantly racist, and it was more so subtle racism. But I was able to overcome that and navigate that. And I did have mentors who were trailblazers in the industry, who were African American women who basically blasted the doors for me, blasted the doors open for me. So I was able to lean onto them for wisdom and to understand how to navigate the crazy side of a hotel ownership.
That's great. That's great. So being that said, you do own 3 hotels. So what would you say is like the first things that people must have together before they even start looking at hotel deals? Um,
I would see Um, I would see the first thing that I would do is see what's past, or I guess see which path you want to take. Meaning, if you want to go through the more passive side or the active side, right? So the active side is what I do. I typically put the deals together, raising capital, talking to the brands, working with the management company, understanding, make sure the hotel is profitable, like, working through the budget. So I do that a lot. Um, the passive side is more so for someone, they don't want to handle what I just said. They're like, okay, Davonne, this is too much. I rather just, invest passively, which can be investing in a REIT, which is a real estate investment trust, or you can invest privately. Some folks, they invest privately, and they invest directly in a deal. So you just have to think about which strategy you want to take, and then from there, then you can take your first steps, and that's something that you have to determine for yourself. So I always say start off with creating your ownership thesis, because if you want to start the passive route versus the active route, then that'll determine how much capital you'll need or you'll have to raise in order to get onto a deal.
that's great. That's great. And I guess most people on both sides, what makes being doing it, I guess, owning a hotel on the passive side, you know, better or come like what's like the major difference between both? Like in terms of somebody who's gonna look in and say to weigh out the pros and cons, what would they look into? Whether they should either become an investor or a owner, and what made you decide to do both?
Well, I probably do more. Well, I guess I do a little passive because I've invested in some REITs, but the pros and cons. So the pros for active, meaning you get more of control of the deal, you get more you get more equity in the deal. When you have an active role, you typically get more equity because you have more control of the deal, because it's your deal, because you're putting it together. The con would be you have to deal with a lot of the risk. The risk is on you. That's a lot of pressure. You have to make sure the hotel is profitable. If you have brought in investors, you have to make sure investors get paid back. You have to deal with the management company. So it's a little more stress factors than you would as a passive investor. So the pro of a passive investor would be you don't have to deal with as much risk. I actually don't have any risk at all. You don't have to a lot of stress factors. Probably the biggest stress is just to make sure that you invested in the right deal so you get your money back. But it's for so that's the only risk that you would have is just if you lose your money. Um, and then that would be the con. Like I said, is just the risk associated with possibly losing your money. But that's with any deal. But the pro would be you don't have to deal with as much risk.
That's good. And speaking of risk, how do you go about, analyzing a hotel deal? What makes a good hotel deal versus a bad one for you?
Well, the top three things you need to look at is location, the brand, and the operator when you're looking at deals. You want to look on different metrics such as cash on cash, return on investment, and cash on cash is just basically the percentage of how much cash you put in and what will be the return of that, right? And as far as what you want to look at, again, going back to your ownership thesis, you need to decide. So one thing about hotels, there's a lot of hotels. So I get all the time, how do you analyze a hotel? Well, the way you analyze a full service is a little different than how you analyze a limited service. And for those who don't know, a full service hotel was a hotel that has a full service, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, called 3 Meal Restaurant. They have a spa, they have more amenities. A limited service, so a full service would be like a Hyatt, right? A Hyatt Regency Atlanta or Marriott Marquis. A limited service would be like a Hyatt Place or a Hampton Inn. They don't have as many amenities. So those, they're evaluated. They have different amenities, they have different revenue streams. So you would analyze it a little differently. But you also have to decide if you're more of a cash flow person or an equity person, because then that would determine which deal will be right for you. So again, it goes back to your ownership thesis. I wish I could.
You mentioned about choosing a brand in terms of when you don't ask about analyzing a hotel. So I'm asking, how important is it to choose the right brand?
Going back to the three things that I said, the location. So the location is key, right? So you have to decide, and also you have to decide what's your strategy. If you're more of a cash flow, if you're more of an equity person, because brands are different. The less amenities you have, the higher your profits will be. Profit margins will be on a percentage base. So that's something that you have to think about. It's over 100 brands. Some people have more favorable brands than others. Like some folks, they focus more on the type of brands, meaning the type of hotel. So they focus more on extended stay. Some folks, they concentrate more on limited service. Some concentrate more on full service. And there are brands for just about each sector that you could think of. Like I just mentioned, there's over 100 brands.
Yeah.
So you just have to determine, like I said, which one will be best for you.
I guess my next question is, Airbnb is a very popular, industry. So how would you say the hotel industry future is, will continue to grow when you're looking at, other companies like Airbnb that they do things in more different aspect, but it still deals with hospitality?
So with Airbnb is definitely, I get this question all the time. With Airbnb is definitely a threat. I don't see it going anywhere. I will say with the hotels, there's one thing the hospitality industry is doing a better job at. It's good and bad. More brands are getting created to touch different types of customers, but also can be confusing to the consumer. As far as with Airbnb, the reason why I don't think it's going away, because it's a win-win for people. People are making money, and then people, they're saving money, by having that experience or getting multiple people, within a house, as opposed, and having more space, as opposed to multiple people in a hotel room that costs more, that perhaps may cost more, that may be that may be a little bit more expensive. Now, where my hotel is located in El Reno, there's not a lot of Airbnb opportunities. So my hotel isn't really affected by Airbnbs. Now, let's say I had a hotel in New York City or Miami where Airbnb is high there, meaning a lot of people use it, then my hotel will probably be affected, because a lot of my market share, or a lot of, folks, they'd rather stay, at an Airbnb in a condo or off of South Beach or near, I can't think of it, but the condo strip in Miami, as opposed to, them getting a hotel off of South Beach.
That's great. I want to ask a question. You just going on that location question. How important is it? Like, not you, not say that. Would you say that hotels, like buying a hotel, works in certain states or certain parts of the country better than it does? Being the fact that, Airbnb is popular in certain places like New York, South Beach, California. Would you say it's much easier to get into different countries like in the South compared to more popular states?
Well, that depends on the real estate costs. So like New York is expensive to get into,
Yeah.
right? So it's just expensive. Miami is expensive to get into. LA or California as a whole is just expensive, as opposed to you buying something in a small town in Georgia, where you could have the same brand, same operator, but the location is more expensive. So instead of a Comfort Inn being $3 million, a Comfort Inn in Georgia could be 3 million, but a Comfort Inn in California can be 15 million, all because of the location. Nothing to do with Airbnb, it's just the price of the real estate.
And how do you go about funding these deals? If you can walk us through the steps of funding a hotel deal.
Sure. So you can go through websites, you can go through relationships with the brokers. I actually have a book coming out. So I talk all these questions. I actually go to a little bit further in detail in the questions in my, with answers in my book about as far as how to buy a hotel. Because I get that question a lot. Okay, how can you develop? How can you acquire? How can you find, again, going through real estate relationships? You want to work with the hotel broker, someone who has sold hotels. My go-to person is Omari Head. He's the, if you're on Instagram, his name is Hip Hop Hotel Broker. So he has access to a lot of deals. Just building relationships with hotel owners. Because a lot of times they, it's off-market deals, owner to owner. So once you really get into the hotel ownership space, it's easier to find deals. I get people send me deals all the time.
That's dope. That's dope.
Yeah.
And what would you say is the biggest challenge you have, had to face or you're facing now as a hotel owner?
Right now, I mean, we're going through COVID. So like any other hotel owner, just trying to wrap our brain. We were doing better this past year. We actually bought our hotel in 2020 during COVID. The last two hotels, it was a result of somewhat a result of COVID. So really the biggest challenge is just really just trying to recover. Now we have the new, I think it's called the Omicron strand. I was about to say the other name that they call it, so I had to catch myself. But just trying to wrap our brain around that, just trying to figure out how we can recover. As an industry as a whole, labor is an issue. Not too much at my hotels. It's a little bit of an issue, but a lot of hotels in the industry, not only just in the hospitality industry, but it's just industries as a whole, supply chain issues, getting supplies that we need to support the guests. So those are the things that I'm facing at my hotel. Other hotel owners are facing at their hotel as well.
And how have you, been able to adapt, especially through COVID, to still make business and still have your hotel running?
Well, I have a management company. So my hotel, I have two hotels in Indiana, one in Oklahoma, right? And I'm in Georgia. I'm based out of Atlanta, Georgia. So I have a management company that operates the day-to-day operations. They give us updates, on what's going on at the property. We give them suggestions and, challenge them to make sure that they're running it based on for what our strategy is. So I don't get into the weeds with the day-to-day. If it is an issue, I'll ask, I'll question it. So that's how I deal with my hotels, from a ownership standpoint and an asset management standpoint.
And I guess, with the challenge of COVID and not knowing what's going to be next, whether a new virus or things of that sort, how has your faith helped you in this journey, stay focused, still want to encourage you to get into this industry,
Oh, you mean my faith?
Yeah.
My faith. Oh, well, I always definitely believe in God. I would not be here if it wasn't for God. I sometimes I get chills, just really thinking about where I've came from, where my family came from. So very, very strong faith and belief of God. I can't describe how much I'm thankful and grateful for the blessings, from God. And people are like, well, really, I really should say, you asked the question, well, how did I get my start? Well, I really do think that it was placed upon me. I didn't know this is where I was going to be, but the seed was placed, the seed was planted. I've been raised to be more of a giving person. My grandma, she always taught me, if you treat people right and love the Lord, God will take care of you. And that is definitely been the truth throughout my time here on earth. So my grandmother, she had a very, very important role in my life when it comes to faith. Just going to church with her. So I was raised Primitive Baptist. I had a lot of denominations in my family, actually. So I was raised in a Primitive Baptist church. I had my aunt who was a Methodist. I'm Baptist. Then I went to a non-denominational church. Have folks in my family who are Muslim. So definitely a lot of different religions, but with a strong belief in God. And just growing up, my grandmother teaching us how to pray, teaching us how to believe, teaching us how to be faithful and how to be patient. These past couple of years, I believe my faith has probably been tested so much. But what's kept me is to be is to been I've been more focused, and I've been more thankful, and I've been more obedient and to God's words, and just to be obedient and to trust in him, and just to see what he has taken me, and I'm trusting him to where he wants me to go, right? And I this past year, past maybe year and a half through COVID, has allowed me to be more present. And it's been quiet because I've been able to listen, right? To listen more to what God has to say. I see how God has blessed me through my son. He's very healthy, very healthy. He's loved. The outpouring of support of family and friends, I've seen it through him. So my faith has definitely been tested, but to see how much God loves me through him, it's just been the ultimate blessing. And just to see where I've came from and really where my family came from, I'm just I'm so blessed, and I'm so thankful. Because I just would have never imagined in a million years, when I started off working as a front desk agent, owning a hotel, let alone 3, I didn't think that. And so more things are coming, and I'm so thankful to God that he put it in my spirit and gave me the vision to do what I'm doing now, to teach other people how to create generational wealth, and to see how I didn't intend to do this. It's just that I love it so much, and I think that it should be more people of color in this space. But to see how it's changing people's lives and hearts and families and creating wealth, just serious generational wealth for these families. That's the passion that's keeping me going, and I thank God every day for my health and for my time here, and just for giving me the vision and surrounding me with so much love. And there's so many good people in my life.
That's great. Thank God for that. Definitely thank God for that. I wanted to ask, I know that you partner with somebody, one of your hotels. So I wanted to ask, how did you go about partnership, or how should people go about partnership when it comes to hotels ownership?
Well, every hotel has a partner. So every hotel, I don't know of any hotel that is just one person. Still to this day, I know. Matter of fact, I know a billionaire who partnered with somebody. So yeah, now the partnership. How do you find partners? Typically, when you get into the hotel space, you start meeting people, you start partnering with people. The first thing I would say is to come up with your goals and objectives, or your ownership thesis, to see if it aligns with somebody else, right? So let's say and then talk about it in the beginning. So if you want to partner with someone and let's say you want to do extended stay, but they want to do full service, y'all not on the same page, because those are completely two different types of hotels. It's two different return metrics. Like it won't, it's a partnership that's just, it's not going to work. It's not going to make sense. And it's going to be a lot of friction because of the two different goals. Now, let's say y'all start off with an extended stay property and you want to grow to have a portfolio for full service hotels. That's different. But another way you can find partners, I have masterminds. And so folks from my masterminds, they actually form partnerships because you're working with like-minded people, going to conferences, networking. I met my business partner, well, from school. I met her while I was in school, Jessica at school. But Mike Ely with Nassau Investments, I actually met him through a friend who I went to school with as well, Nick Sai. So shout out to Nick Sai. She's a hotel broker as well. So just really getting into the hotel space, and really you have to get immersed into it, right? In order for you to really get involved with this, you have to get involved to kind of understand it and to build those relationships. Business is business, real estate is real estate, and one thing has in common is building relationships. And so if you want to start building those partnerships, going to these industry conferences, joining. I actually have a Facebook group. It's some partnerships that's been developed from the Facebook group. It's called Black Hotel Investors on Facebook. So it's a free group. I definitely recommend for you all to join it. We share information. It's a lot of people, a lot of active people in the group who, looking for partners, or who, we're seeking guidance. And it's like, we're all in the same boat. My mastermind folks, they definitely formed partnerships. They didn't meet, and they met, in the group. So I definitely recommend that you all, those are some ways that how you can form partnerships.
And what would you say is the biggest challenge that people face getting started in this journey of ownership?
Not believing that you can do it. There's no checklist. There's no it's not like a cookie cutter way of buying the hotel. So the way to really get started is believing yourself, doing the research, getting the education, connecting with the right people.
And what has been some research that you have taken advantage that has helped you in your journey so far?
Joining conferences, getting certifications, reading industry articles, keeping me up to date, connecting with people, being around people who are smarter than me, staying up to date in the space. I suggest y'all follow my brother. I'm gonna bring him up again, Amari Head. He stays giving information about the hotel industry. He's a hospitality nerd, so he loves it. So definitely, follow people like that, who gives a lot of data, on the industry, because hospitality is a data-driven industry, numbers, and I'm not really a numbers person. But I have to get into the space to understand the data, because that's how you become a better business, is really understanding the data, so that way you can become more profitable.
And what are some conferences that, I know you mentioned conferences, are there any specific name conferences that people can go to look for these different partners or network with people?
I would start off, before you get into partnership, I would start with educating yourself first, because you don't want to partner with the wrong person out of you being desperate, or you not having the knowledge that you need to be well equipped to make the right decision. So I would say education first, and then work on possibly, building relationships for a partner. NABHOOD, National Association of Black Wholesale Operators and Developers. That's an organization based out of South Florida. They have an annual conference. That's a good one to get started with. AHOA, the Asian American Hotel Owners Association. That's a good conference to get started with. They have a lot of good information, a lot of good education. So I would start off with those two. Or actually, and the American Hotel Lodging Association, HX. It happens, it's in New York every year. So that's more of an operational focus, but those are three good industry conferences as far as for education and for networking.
Are there any books, by great authors that you can recommend people to read
Look,
about get into hotels?
my book is coming out in March 2020.
Okay.
Of course, a shameless plug. My book is How to Buy a Hotel. There's actually not a lot of books on buying a hotel now that I think about it. It's not, because people, that's how I wrote my book, because people kept asking me and I was like, oh wait, I don't have a book to give you. So my book, How to Buy a Hotel, it's coming out March 2022. Make sure that you make sure you pre-order. For the folks that actually pre-order, I'm doing a speaker series. So I'm bringing in speakers, hotel experts, to talk about the industry, talking about how to invest in REITs, how to analyze a hotel, bringing in hotel owners to share their experiences. So I definitely recommend you go to my website, thevonnegroup.shop, to order your book today, to pre-order your book, so that way you can be a part of the speaker series, which will be recorded. And the only people who will have access to the speaker series are the folks who actually buy the book, who actually pre-order the book.
So yeah, I want to go back a little bit, because you mentioned, once you do get started, you do get that first property, not property, first hotel, it's easy to just scale and just going from there. How did you go about getting that first hotel? Like, what was the steps that you had to take?
To get in my first hotel, I mean, relationships. That hotel was really built on a relationship. It was an introduction to the ownership group, and we were able to get on a deal and work through the deal together. So it wasn't. I get the question all the time, well, why did you choose Oklahoma? We didn't choose it. That was just where the deal was. I guess Oklahoma chose us, and that wasn't my situation a little different, because I've been in the industry for so long. So like I said, I get deals and developing relationships and my experience. So it's been a little easier.
Where do you see the future of the hospitality industry in the next 5 to 10 years?
I see it more technology based. I see it more. I see it being more diverse group of owners. I see a push of folks being more, because right now the ownership groups in the hotel space, over 60% are Indian, meaning from East Asia, and so I'm seeing it being more diverse. Hoping to see more Black and brown hotel owners in the space, seeing more executive leaders being more diverse. It's going to change, because the leaders like myself, we're going to be in our 40s, some people in their 50s. So I'm seeing the hospitality, which meaning the older generations who've been doing the same thing forever, we have a new generation, new technology that's going to come in, and definitely is going to take the hospitality space to the next level.
And the reason you said Indian are, they hold a majority of role, and why is that like this? I wouldn't think that would be the case. Why?
Well, they started off with the concept of looking at economy hotels, so your Super 8s, your Motel 6. So they started off with that. Those are more of a cash on cash, more of, if you're coming from like multifamily, that's probably where I would recommend that you start with the economy, because the profit margins are high. You get more of a cash play. And so with the Indian community, they was able to grow and to scale, because they started off with, and they also pulled their funds together. Some folks lived in the hotel, so they house hacked the hotel. So they were to get really creative, and then they started small and they were able to grow. And so now you have folks who are owning full service hotels, owning Ritz-Carltons, from starting off of a simple model, starting off with the Super 8 first.
And I want to ask that, what would you say are some key things that keeps you profitable? Have people coming back to your different hotels,
Customer
recommend.
service. People want, one thing about hotels is real basic. They just want A hotel is, it's the same box, maybe a different slab of paint on it, you know what I mean? But the things what get people coming back is the experience, right? How was the customer service? What was it like? Was it clean? Was the food good? Like, that's what's going to keep people coming back, right? Not the light in on the wall. Like, that's cool, but what's going to get people to come back and to rave and to share testimonies about this hotel and to give good ratings on TripAdvisor is the experience. Was it clean? Did they have a good night's rest? And were they comfortable?
That's good, and that's very true. That is very true. And being that said, I can only imagine, it's important for you as an owner to make sure your reviews are on point.
Mhm.
How do you deal with, when someone does have a bad review? If you had experienced that yet, how did you go about,
Oh,
addressing
every hotel has gotten a bad review. I don't care what hotel it is. Every hotel, nobody's happy. I've seen 6, 7-star, 5-star hotels with bad reviews. Like, somebody always gives a bad review. How you handle it is just all a part of service recovery, right? So typically the general manager, whoever, they'll respond accordingly to make sure that the guests. A lot of times what folks do, they check in with the guests while they're in the actual hotel. So that way, by the time they leave, the the issue has already been resolved, but you can't catch every guest. So a lot of times you ask the guests how would their stay, they said it was great. And next thing on TripAdvisor, they said it was horrible. So um, I mean, that's a whole nother podcast, right? So you just have to do what you can to come back, and as far as in guest recovery, and what can you do, to make sure that that guest was heard, to make sure that they had a great experience, and of course to make sure that they come back again.
I definitely want to say thank you for this time. Thank you for telling us about your journey so far. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? As someone in the industry.
I see myself diversifying into different real estate asset classes. Definitely still seeing the mission of encouraging more people of color to get into the ownership spaces, and just giving back to the community any way I can, take care of my child. That's where I see myself, and being happy, just being present in the moment, being thankful, um, and really enjoying life. That's where I see myself. Real simple.
I definitely want to ask you one question, being the fact that you are a mother. So how do you manage your schedule, your work life, and being an investor and being a mother?
It is very hard. I think I gotten better at it. Son is almost 3. I try to schedule as many things while he's in daycare. I try to have the weekends off for him, keep him active, take him to the park, keep him in extracurricular activities. We travel. He loves the water. So just keep him, keep him active, be present for him. It is challenging. But having a good support system, and making sure, that you have to take care of yourself. I think a lot of times with moms or or parents, you have to take care of yourself first. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your kids, right?
Yeah.
So just trying to take care of myself, doing the best way I can, which can be hard at times. But try to take care of myself so that way I can be present and be happy for him.
That's good. Do you have any word of wisdom for someone who may want to get into hotel ownership or as an investor?
I would say, you know what? I heard someone say, instead of saying find your passion, find your purpose. And I said that makes sense. So find your purpose, right? So define what is your purpose for investing. Is it for yourself? Is it to create generational wealth? Is it like, what is your purpose in understanding your why? So, because hotel ownership or hotel investment may not be for everybody, because it's more of a longer term investment strategy. Some people, they want something that's more immediate. That's perfectly fine. But you have to understand your purpose and you have to understand your why. So that's my recommendation for anyone who wants to start. Because investing in hotels, it's very capital intensive. And I would hate for someone, to think they invest one day and become they get $1 million in cash tomorrow. It's not how it works. So understanding your purpose, educating yourself on what you're getting into, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, that's great. And where can people find you to stay in touch with you?
Oh yeah, sure. So they can find me at on Instagram at Davonne Reaves, or you go to my website, thevonnegroup.com. Yeah.
Thank you again, Ms.Davonne Reaves, for your time. And I hope those who are listening, you guys do research and do take action, like always. For those who may not know, I have created a free study guide that you can get on my website, wealthinchristbrand.com, which will show you how you can get started in the stock market completely for free. And stay tuned for the next big episode.